Good evening. Let's try that again. Good evening. Thank you. Welcome to Frederick Community College. I'm Jeannie Winston-Muir, the director of the Center for Student Engagement, and we're so thankful you could be here with us this evening. Before I turn the program over to President Elizabeth Burmaster, president of Frederick Community College, I'd like to just invite you to silent your cell phones along with me. Wonderful. All right, we'll get started. Libby?
Good evening, and welcome to Frederick Community College. We want to begin with gratitude. Thank you so very much for being here this evening for what is a very, very important event. Tonight, we will hear from Shannon Stanley, who will share her story of love, of courage, and of survival after losing her daughter to heroin. We begin with gratitude. We thank you, Shannon, for being here. We admire your bravery and your commitment to helping all of us by sharing your daughter's story. We also thank Emmy Award-winning producer Conrad Weaver for joining us tonight. He will show the trailer for Heroin's Grip, his documentary that shines a light on heroin use in Frederick County. And as we discussed during the kickoff event yesterday for the National Collegiate Drug and Alcohol Awareness events, we're grateful for the opportunity to come together this week as a united community to address the issue of drug and alcohol misuse and addiction. We're fortunate in Frederick County, in Frederick City. We're fortunate to have individuals and organizations who work with FCC. Folks from our city, we thank Mayor Randy McClement, who's here tonight. We thank Police Chief Hargis, Ed Hargis, and all the elected officials who've joined us here tonight. We thank these leaders who work to provide the training, the resources, and who have a great dedication to offer a wide range of services which will provide a lifeline to those who are battling drug and alcohol addiction. The Frederick City Police is one of those very important organizations. We admire their dedication to serving our community in countless ways, and we especially want to thank Captain Dwight Summers, who's the Deputy Chief of Police. And we also want to thank Michelle Bowman, Public Information and Community Outreach Coordinator, for making this event possible. We've seen the interest that the Frederick City Police have in getting to know their community members. They come to our Coffee with a Cop events, which we hold here on our main campus. Again, we are grateful for their commitment to our community and to all of us. So thank you for joining in our education and advocacy efforts to address this important issue. As we all know, this is an issue that touches all parts of our community, and it is up to us to work together to overcome addiction in our community and to prevent further drug and alcohol misuse among our friends, among our family, and among our community members. And I now have the great pleasure of introducing Michelle Bowman, who will provide more information about the event tonight. So join me in welcoming Michelle.
I want to thank you all for coming tonight to join us for Alyssa's story. A couple of people that I would like to acknowledge. Mayor Randy McClement is here. Over here. We have Chief Ed Hargis over here as well. And we have Clay Stamp, who's the Executive Director of the Opioid Operational Command Center for Governor Hogan's administration. And I want to bring you up for a couple minutes to make a few comments, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Michelle. Good evening, everybody. So I just want to take a minute and thank you all for being here tonight. So I'm here to bring greetings, true greetings from Governor Larry Hogan, who asked me as an emergency manager to step in March to try to manage the crisis, the heroin and opioid crisis, like a crisis, and to elevate it to that level. I've been a crisis manager for a lot of years, and this crisis is much different. This crisis, the impact is huge. On average, we're seeing 6 Marylanders die a year, die a day. Six Marylanders a day. Yet there's a propensity for us to want to put our head in the sand. And there's an awful stigma that surrounds this crisis that we have to fight. And since March, I've been trying to lead an effort throughout Maryland with the direction of the governor to launch a balanced approach to attack this crisis and to mobilize our communities around Maryland through events like this and through our local jurisdictions to make sure that we have a balanced approach through prevention, through enforcement, and through expanding access to treatment. And I'm happy to see that we are seeing a lot of activity. But what drives our passion are the stories that we're going to hear tonight. What drives our passion are the people that we lose every day. We must keep a face. We must elevate the conversation and keep a face on this crisis. And we must focus our energy together. We don't have the luxury of doing our own thing in order to combat this crisis. It's a national crisis, but in Maryland, we've elevated it to the highest level, and we're doing our best, but it's going to take every one of us to make a difference. So Shannon, I applaud you tonight for standing up and giving us Alyssa's story, because that's going to drive our passion to make a difference. So thank you for inviting me here tonight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stamp. So we are all here tonight to hear Alyssa's mother, Shannon Stanley, talk about her daughter, who was just 17 when she passed away from a heroin overdose on Saturday, June 4th, 2016. I have had the pleasure of knowing Shannon since we were 12, and Shannon actually still looks the same as she did when we were like that young, right? So I luckily went to high school and middle school with Shannon. We both went to Damascus High School. And coincidentally, 2 of my daughters went to school with Alyssa. So it seems like we've kind of followed in a lot of the same paths. On that Saturday, I remember being home looking at Facebook well, we're all on Facebook, and reading that Alyssa had passed away. And so many emotions went through. Dismay, disbelief, grief, sadness, couldn't believe that it had happened. In the year following Alyssa's death, I've seen how much love Shannon had had for Alyssa, and I felt it was important that we told Alyssa's story. It was not until we started talking about this project and coercing Shannon to do this that I learned about all the heartaches that she had in her struggles and her journey, and Shannon will be sharing those with us tonight. Since I had met Shannon a couple months ago and we started talking about this, I've been racking my brain trying to come up with something to sum up this introduction of this amazing woman. And last Tuesday on my way to work, this kind of came to me. We can either let our loss and grief consume us, or we can do something to give it meaning and purpose. Shannon, your selfless actions in sharing Alyssa's story have given her death both meaning and purpose. And I am so honored to have you here tonight, and I love you for doing this. We're going to watch a short clip of Alyssa.
See your face in every sunrise, so many ways I dream of those eyes, and you are my skies. You are beautiful when you cry. Voice says to me that everything will be okay today. whispers to me all your secrets quietly. Gently you take my hand. You take my hand. Every night we share our lonely moments here and there. Every night we sleep, but secretly I wish you were here with me. Your imprint still remains. It left the pillow just the same. Lingering memories of perfect nights of you and me. I miss you. I miss you. I miss you so.
So I should have stayed backstage during that. I just want to, before I get into this, I just want to say I don't claim to be some great public speaker, and I certainly don't claim to be some expert on addiction, but I have lived through every parent's worst nightmare. So bear with me as I tell you the story about Alyssa. Being the parent of a child with a disease called addiction is terrifying. It's sleepless nights, tough love, feeling guilty, constant worry, second guessing every decision, and waiting for that phone call that your child is overdosed, or even finding them yourselves. I've lived it, and those are just some of the things that I've experienced with my daughter. We're an average, normal, everyday family. We're good parents who live for our children. Although Alyssa's father and I divorced when she was very young, it was quite difficult in the beginning, but we put our differences aside and put Alyssa first and became great friends and are to this day. Growing up, Alyssa was outgoing, funny, adventurous. She was a sassy little princess. She played t-ball and soccer and basketball and did dance for many years. My husband, Mike, and I married when Alyssa was 5 years old, and he loved her as if she were his own. Elementary and middle school were normal school years for Alyssa. When it was time for her to start high school, we lived in the city, and we decided to move to the outskirts of Frederick just because we didn't want Alyssa going to a city school. I grew up, my family grew up, Alyssa's father grew up. We were all from Damascus, which is far from a city school, if you're familiar. So we moved to the Oakdale district. I heard great things about Oakdale, so we were tickled to find the perfect house with a great school. When Alyssa started high school, she kind of fell out of her sports and dance and was just excited to start high school and see what opportunities there were for her. I slowly started to see some changes in Alyssa. Changes in her attitude, spending a lot of time in her room, not really wanting to hang out with her family or her little sisters, things I just chalked up to being a normal teenager, as we've all been through. And then one day, I received a phone call from one of Alyssa's very good friend's mother, who told me that she heard that Alyssa was using heroin. I was totally shocked and completely clueless. That day, as soon as Alyssa came home from school, I drug tested her. I went right to CVS, bought a drug test, and I drug tested her. And it came up positive for opiates. I did not even know what an opiate was. I had no clue what that meant. When I questioned Alyssa, she told me that somebody from school gave her a pill, an oxycodone. Again, didn't even really know what that meant. I told her about the phone call I received, and she kind of blew it off, and Mom, it's a rumor, you know. It's not true. It's a silly rumor that's going around. And she cried and told me she was sorry and that she'd never do it again. So the next day, when she was at school, I searched her room, and I found a rolled-up dollar bill in her nightstand. I knew at that moment that the situation was much worse than what I thought. I knew that obviously she had to be snorting something. There was no other reason for her to have this rolled-up dollar bill. So I again confronted her, and she actually admitted that she was crushing pills and snorting them. That began our journey with quietly trying to fix my 15-year-old daughter. Notice how I said quietly trying to fix my 15-year-old daughter, but I didn't want anyone to know what was going on. What kind of parent would they think I am? What kind of mother am I? And I have 2 younger daughters. What would their friends' parents think? What would the school think? What would the teachers think? What would anybody think? What would my own family think? We don't do drugs. We're a normal family. So we couldn't believe this was happening and couldn't figure out why. After making Alyssa go see a therapist, she was eventually diagnosed with depression and put on meds for that, which she claimed didn't work. And I later realized that they didn't work because Alyssa was still using, so therefore the two together won't work. But there was no way that I was going to give up on her. I made her go to inpatient rehab. She spent 30 days there, and when she came home, I thought she'd be cured and that our nightmare would be over. Little did I know that this was just the beginning. 2 months later, I received a call at work that Alyssa had a seizure at school. And I know some of her friends are here tonight and remember this day. She mixed some pills at school and had a seizure right in her classroom. So I met him in the ER. Again, she apologized, said she slipped up and that it wouldn't happen again. So once again, I made her go to counseling, attend NA meetings where she would get randomly drug tested. And we decided to move Alyssa to another school so she wouldn't be maybe so tempted around the same kids. So we moved her to Urbana High School, which is a great school. I quickly learned it didn't matter where you go to school because drugs are everywhere. She failed a drug test, and we got her into another rehab for a longer stay this time. After 46 days in a non-locked facility, Alyssa went AWOL. She literally jumped out of a window and left. I was devastated. It was horrifying. trying to appear normal at home with my 2 younger daughters who knew nothing about anything, my own family who knew nothing, trying to put on a front that everything was okay. She was missing for 4 days. At 3 o'clock in the morning on the 4th day, I received a call that she had been found on the Eastern Shore, and I needed to pick her up from the police station immediately. I jumped out of bed and drove for 3 hours. I was so relieved to see her, I couldn't even yell at her. I was just so happy to see her. She promised again to get it together, and for the next 4 months, she did. I drug tested her constantly. I made her again attend meetings. She got a job. She got new friends. And we actually thought she had turned the corner. One day I picked her up from work, and she seemed off. She claimed she was just tired, and she went home and went straight to bed. But my gut was telling me that something was going on. So I went to check on her, and to my horror, I found her unconscious in her bed. I attempted CPR and called 911. Thankfully, my husband came home early that day, and in the middle of the chaos, he took over as I tried to comfort my younger daughters, who were in absolute hysterics. The EMTs arrived and Narcaned her and took her to the hospital. The months following consisted of me obsessing over her every move. More therapy, more psychiatrists, more psychologists. We installed alarms around all of our doors and windows. We got a safe for all of our meds and valuables. We installed cameras all around our home. We even removed her doorknob, to her horror, that she had no privacy. Things were tense, but we had to keep it on and keep our family safe. And we honestly did not know what else to do. One evening, I let Alyssa have a girl come over to have some girl time. Alyssa said she was a nice girl who didn't use, and she was doing well, so I let her have this privilege, if you will. In the middle of the night, that girl burst into my room and said there was something wrong with Alyssa. She once again had overdosed. My husband performed CPR, and again, the EMTs had to Narcan her. This time, I begged the police to please charge her with something, possession, anything. I needed help. I needed juvenile services to step in and help me because what we were doing was not working. When she was released from the hospital the next day, when I was in the shower, she left the house. So the police put a bench warrant out for her. And after contacting some of her friends on social media, word got around, and she came home. And as soon as she walked in the door, I texted my contact at the police department and said, please come now, please, which they did. Seeing her in handcuffs and being arrested was, again, just heartbreaking. She was admitted to Noyes Juvenile Detention Center. I was sick and felt completely depleted, but at least I knew where she was. Hopefully she was safe and not using. Everyone involved in her case agreed that she needed long-term inpatient rehab. While waiting for a bed at yet another rehab, we had to go in front of a judge, and that judge asked me and her father if we would allow Alyssa to come home. We both agreed that we would not. Again, rip your heart out. After 2 more weeks in juvenile, she was admitted into her 3rd rehab. A couple weeks went by, and I was able to visit Alyssa, and she was like a different kid. She was remorseful and sorry for everything she had put our family through, which was absolute hell. She told me she understood why we wouldn't let her come home. She admitted she had a problem for the first time. Even after her overdoses, she finally admitted that there was a problem. And she told me how she started with marijuana and alcohol, and then pills, and then heroin, like so many other people. She was finally taking her recovery seriously. I received great remarks week after week. She was attentive and participated in everything. She was like the perfect patient in rehab. She completed the program and came home on house arrest to complete her possession sentence. She became the big sister to Tori and Jenna, who loved her dearly. She became my daughter again. Things were becoming normal for our family again. She even asked the judge if there could be one stipulation to her sentence, and that would be if she could go to church on Sundays, which we did. She had an inner peace that I hadn't seen ever. Friday, June 3rd, 2016, we watched a movie together. We laughed hysterically. We talked about her 18th birthday that was coming up, how in just 4 days she was getting off of house arrest. I could hear the excitement in her voice when she talked about everything she wanted to do. We were so proud of her, and more importantly, she was so proud of herself. She was over 90 days clean. She was happy for the first time in a long time. We hugged goodnight. I told her I loved her, and we went to bed. The next morning, I went to wake her up for a group meeting at Austin Addiction, and I found her in her bed. We now had our own Narcan, which we tried. Unfortunately, we were too late. That morning changed our lives forever. After going through her phone, I saw she received a text message from a dealer by mistake. I have to be very careful here. A dealer who knew she was in recovery, a dealer who knew Alyssa was trying to stay clean, a dealer who I begged many times to stay away from her, and in my opinion, a dealer that did not give a damn. While Alyssa's friends were in Ocean City for senior week, I was planning her funeral. She never went to her senior prom. She never got her driver's license. She never got to enjoy her teenage years. Her teenage years consisted of drugs, rehabs, counseling, and relapses. But you know, we never, ever gave up on Alyssa because we know recovery is possible, and we still know that today. I've met so many people who have been down this road and came out on the other side. If you're a parent of a child who is struggling with drugs, I encourage you to reach out. I didn't, and I regret it. Thankfully, I received a call from Terry Austin from Austin Addiction, where Alyssa attended IOP, who encouraged me to attend their support group. That support group has saved me, and some of them are here tonight. Parents, friends, family, educate yourselves. Talk to people who've been through it. Know the signs. You can literally Google signs of heroin use, and a list will pop up. I did it. It's true. Talk to your children. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't beat around the bush, because this is literally life and death. Don't be embarrassed or ashamed to reach out. And please don't ever think this can't happen to you or your family or your child. I learned it doesn't matter where you live, how much money you have, where you go to school, what color you are. Heroin doesn't discriminate. Addiction doesn't discriminate. You know, if you're currently messing around with drugs in general, you really need to think about what you're doing, because now you never know what you're even getting. And I promise you, once you go down this road, you're going to wish you didn't, because it can only lead to disaster. You know, this is really difficult to stand here and share my daughter's story, but if I can convince one person to reach out, help somebody realize they're not alone, make people not judge, but instead maybe try to help, that's why I do it. I love my daughter with all my heart, and I know she would absolutely hate that her story ended this way. She told me she hated that she ever started using. I read messages on her social media, on her phone, of her encouraging so many people to walk the line and to not get involved with this. People I don't even know. Something that she just couldn't do herself. She was so caring and so much better than she even knew she ever gave herself credit for. This is now where we go to visit Alyssa. This is Tori and Jenna, Alyssa's little sisters. This is the 1-year anniversary that we lost Alyssa. This is what very well could be the future of an addict. Because you never know if the next time you use will be the last time you use. But it doesn't have to be. Because again, I want to express recovery is possible. Again, I've met so many people in this journey who have overcome this. It's a lifetime commitment, and I imagine it's very, very difficult. But you don't give up on your recovery, and you don't give up on your addict. You see, there's a difference between enabling someone and supporting someone. Thank you all for coming out here tonight and listening to this. Start a conversation, because you just never know who can relate and who's going through the same thing or something similar as you. And again, don't give up on your recovery, and don't give up on your addict. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shannon, for your courage to get up and tell Alyssa's story. Okay, so now we're going to introduce Conrad Weaver, who is a local Emmy Award-winning producer. Conrad will be talking about an upcoming documentary film called Heroin's Grip. He will also be showing us a trailer of the film, and the film tells the story of the heroin epidemic here in Frederick County, Maryland. So please give Conrad a warm welcome.
started out half a gram a day or so, and now it's been almost 5 months since then. And I've been doing 2 to 3 grams a day or so, and that's about $280 to $420. I would stop if there wasn't physical withdrawals. I can't continue doing this. I mean, I won't be anything.
My life was consumed by counting my pills. Was I going to run out? Where was I going to get them? But I didn't think I had a problem. But then I started a doctor shop. There were times I would go to 6 different pharmacies in Frederick. I would be everywhere. Everybody's out of it. I was turning into a monster.
Like many other addicts, it started with weed, with marijuana. On Friday evening, she received a text from a dealer, and that trigger is all it took. Her and I sat Friday night and watched a movie together and laughed and had a great evening together, talking about, you know, the future and how excited she was. And when I went to wake her up in the morning to take her to her meeting, I was too late. It was just a battle that she couldn't win.
There's no class of people, no race of people that have been exempt from this, none. White, black, Hispanic. I mean, the overdose emails I get, it could be from a 16-year-old black kid in the city or a white kid in the city. It might be a 62-year-old white man up in the northern parts of the Frederick County. It's crazy. I've never seen anything like it. It's going to get worse before it gets better. I think we're behind the tidal wave.
I've watched heroin and pain pills rip through this community. I can't even begin to put into words, and I'm sick of burying my friends. And it's time that we all need to get on the same page to do something about it.
Good evening. 12 months ago or so, I was living my life in Emmitsburg, Maryland, doing the family thing, doing the work thing, and reading the newspaper, watching the news about this opioid and heroin problem that I had no connection to. I didn't know anything about it. The more I saw the news reports, the more I saw the stories of heartbreak, and the more I saw that young people at our local high school, Catoctin High School, were dying, the more I thought, I can't just sit here and do nothing. A friend of mine that I know here in Frederick, her son had been in and out of prison, had been in and out of rehab, and she told me her son's story. And after hearing that, I made the decision, I've got to do something. I've got to do what I do best, and that's, I make films. And I've got to tell this story. So I began on the journey that opened my eyes to a whole world that I knew nothing about. And I began to unravel and unmask the things that surprised me, shocked me, saddened me, and brought me to a place where of really grief and sadness. But then I also met people who had hope and who were dealing hope. I know there's a t-shirt going around that said, I'm a hope dealer. I love that. So in the midst of this crisis, in the midst of this terrible epidemic, there is hope. I want to do a quick informal survey here tonight. You've been sitting here for a while. If you'd all just stand up. If you are here in this room and you have lost a loved one, a family member, or a close friend to opioid or heroin overdose, go ahead and sit down. If you're still standing, if you have currently or have had a friend or maybe yourself are in recovery, or someone that you know in your family who is dealing with this problem now, go ahead and sit down. And for those of us that are standing, I'm standing with you. Because my life hasn't been touched directly by a friend, by a close friend, or a family member. You can go ahead and have your seat. This impacts all of us. And my goal with this film is to bring this story to those of us who are standing. Here, a couple months ago, I was downtown Frederick, and I decided to do an informal interview. I had my camera, and I was interviewing people as to what they knew about the heroin problem in our community. And many people responded like I expected. It's a terrible thing. It's a heartbreaking thing. I have a friend. I have a loved one. I've dealt with it. That kind of thing. Then there was a response from people who was like, "There's a heroin problem?" I was like, "Are you living under a rock?" And then there was a lady who said, and she looked well-dressed and was from another community in another part of the state, and she said, "There's no heroin problem in my community, none of my friends, and I really wouldn't want to get involved in that at all." I said, "Well, what would happen if your close friend or someone you know would be involved with this?" "Well, I would just call the police and let them deal with it. I don't want to get involved with that." Ladies and gentlemen, that is not the solution. It's a community problem, and all of us need to get involved. Whether I live in Emmitsburg or whether we live anywhere, we all have a role to play in solving this problem, whether it's supporting those friends of ours who are dealing with it every day. Because you know what? It's not just the problem for the addict. It extends to that person's friends and family. It impacts everyone in their circle. And so all of us need to band together to help and to support and to encourage and to eliminate and eradicate this issue in our community. And my goal with this film is to tell this story of what's happening here in Frederick, which is a microcosm of what's happening nationwide, and bring this story to light, to tell the stories of heartbreak, to tell the stories of addiction, like the young man we interviewed who's right now in his 3rd month in recovery and doing well, I might say. I want to bring this story to the big screen. I want to bring it to television. I want to bring it to high schools. I want to bring it to colleges. I want to bring it to campuses all over our community and all over the country. I want to be able to use this as a tool to educate people. I want to bring this education to people that, like me, who knew nothing about this. It's an important story to tell, and we have to tell it. I want to build awareness. And then I want to help show the hope and the solutions that are happening here in our community and in our region. Because there are people sitting in this room, there are people doing amazing things to support those who are currently in addiction or those who have suffered a loss. And Shannon, I want to say thank you for allowing me to be here. And it's a privilege to know you and to tell part of your story and Alyssa's story in our film. And I can't wait to get this thing finished. And here's my final thing. I can't do this alone. Many of you have gone to our website and have helped us raise support, and we've raised approximately about $10,000 for this project. It takes a lot more than that to produce a film of this magnitude. And so we need your help and the help of people like you to help get this story out. And if you know of someone who maybe has financial means and can help us, maybe in a large way to get this film funded and completed, please come talk to me. I'll be out in the lobby afterwards. Look, if you want to make a contribution tonight, I've got a Square card reader, and I'll take your credit card. It goes directly to the Maryland Heroin Awareness Advocates. They're our 501c3 fiscal agent, and so you'll get a tax break and a receipt for that. And so we're raising funds through them. So if you want to support this film, please stop by and see me out in the lobby. Help us get this film made and completed so that we can get it out to our community, to the world as soon as possible, because it's an important story we need to tell, and it's a story that's going to change lives, and it hopefully will save a life of the people who see it. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to talking to you out in the lobby.
Thank you so much, Conrad, for your efforts to highlight this problem here in Frederick County. The City of Frederick, the Frederick Police Department, and Frederick Community College want to thank you for attending tonight's presentation of Alyssa's story. I especially want to thank Shannon Stanley for her strength and courage to attend and speak about her daughter, Alyssa. We also want to thank Conrad Weaver for coming and highlighting Frederick County for us. We would like you all to stick around. We do have a reception out in the foyer area, and both Shannon and Conrad will be out there, as well as other folks to chat with you. So please stick around and hang out with us for a little while. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank